Hi kids, y'all remember me?
Yes.
I've been thinking about our visit a lot since you were here last night. Being back here at the shores of the Lake of Galilee sure has brought back some memories that I hadn't thought about it in a long, long time. I was thinking about all the lives that I've lived and all the many years that I've been here, the days that I've seen. My favorite memories, the best time of my life were the years that I spent with Jesus when he was here on this earth. I can't tell you how many times we walked along the shores of the Sea of Galilee. Or how many times we slept out on the hard ground looking up at the stars above. And when I made that decision all those many years ago that I'm going to follow Jesus, I know that there were times that I doubted myself and I wondered if I could do it. But the darkest day was still ahead of me. I didn't know it then. Jesus was telling us all along that it was about time for him to leave, that he was going to leave this earth. We really didn't understand. We kept thinking, but the world needs you, Jesus. We need you. That's all we could think about. But then they came and they arrested Jesus. They took him to trial, and we knew it was going to get really bad. Everything just seemed to be unraveling before us. And when he was telling us that he was going to be crucified, I stood up and I said, Jesus, I will fight to the death for you. I'll never forget what he said to me. He looked me right in the eye. And Jesus said, before the rooster crows in the morning, you're going to deny me 3 times. But I was so hard-headed. I just knew that I wouldn't do anything like that. Maybe the other disciples would, but I was Peter. I was the rock. I wasn't going to say Jesus. I wasn't going to say I don't know who he is. Did you know that night we were warming ourselves by the fire, and someone looked at me and they said, "You're one of his followers." And I said, "No, I'm not." I yelled at him. I cursed at him. And I denied Jesus right then. Not once, not twice, but 3 times I denied Jesus. And then I heard it. The rooster crowed. I heard it. It was like someone had stabbed me in the heart. And I looked up at Jesus, and Jesus turned and he looked back at me again, and the disappointment in his eyes, the betrayal on his face when he looked at me, it hurt. And I went out and I cried like a baby. I cried and I cried and I cried. But I couldn't stay down long. There was too much work to be done. That night they took Jesus away. They crucified him. 3 days later, Jesus came back from the dead. And he met with us, and we got to see him. We met with him in the upper room. We worshiped with him, and then we lasted a few days, and then Jesus said, "Meet me at the Sea of Galilee." We went back to Galilee. It's where it all started, and it's where it all finished. Me and the other disciples, and my brother Andrew, and James, and John. Thomas was there. Even Nathaniel from Cana, just down the way from the Lake of Galilee. He was there. A couple others. We gathered together. We decided we were going to go fishing one more time. So we were laying there that night on the shores. It was getting late, and we were all confused because we didn't know what was going to happen. But Jesus told us to meet him here, and so we were here, waiting for him to teach that one last lesson.
Well, boys, you've come a long way. It's hard to believe it's been 3 years since we were last on the shore of the Messiah and Son of God. Sometimes our mind just trips up with us. It's pretty deep sometimes. And I was the one who was sick. How could I ever doubt it? He was so good. He was so patient with us.
Well, boys, the way I look at it, we can sit here and beat ourselves up all night.
right side, and there you will find some fish. Bring some of the fish you caught.
Let's have some breakfast.
Peter, Peter, you love me more than these?
Yes, you know I think very about it.
Feed my lambs. Peter, you love me?
Yes, you know I think very highly of you. I care about you very much.
Take my sheep. Peter, you care enough for me?
Yes, that's what I've been trying to tell you. You know everything. You know how much I care for you.
Feed my sheep.
That was the last time I saw Jesus. The last words that I spoke to him, and I know it's not what he wanted to hear. He wanted me to proclaim my dedication to him, to tell him how determined I was to love his people and to lead them in the paths that they needed to go. And I couldn't do it. I wasn't ready to make that kind of commitment. I guess that old rooster just kept crowing in my mind. I'd already failed him once. I didn't want to fail him again. All he wanted to know was that I was determined to follow after him. And I wasn't ready to make that commitment at that time. But looking back, I know now that that's what Jesus wanted to hear. You know, sometimes we just have to make the determination that no matter what happens, I'm going to continue to follow him. And that's the way it's supposed to be. You know, so thankful that you're all here tonight. The lessons that we need to learn from Jesus about dedication. You know, I think about him that day and how we were back at the shores of Galilee. And how all he wanted to hear from me was that I was determined to follow him. And from that day forward, I determined I was going to. I marched right back to Jerusalem. And just about a month later, I got to preach the first sermon after Jesus went back to heaven. And people were coming, and they were hearing and they were making that decision to follow him, and they were casting off self-doubt, and they were dedicated to that determined spirit to follow after Jesus. You know, I think about Jesus Christ, our rock. And compared to the rock of Jesus, I'm but a pebble. But as small as I may be, I'm going to determine all the days of my life to follow him. We've had such a wonderful time at this VBS. I'm so thankful that all of you are here. I'm thankful for the lessons that you've learned. And I hope that as you leave here, maybe you come back and you keep coming back to learn more about Jesus, to learn more about Peter, to learn more about what God wants for each one of you. There's so many other things I could tell you about. Jesus was here so many days. I could tell you about all the lessons he taught and all the people that he performed miracles on and all the places he went to. But I guess if we wrote them all down one by one, there's not enough room in the world that we can tell of all the wonderful works of Jesus. But I hope that you will take these and learn to love and follow him. I hope you have a great night. We'll see y'all later.